Did you know that the adoption home study is the very first official step in order to move forward with adopting your baby? Perhaps you did, and today we are going to dive deep into what an adoption home study looks like and some tricks about how you can prepare now to make it easy for you to bring home your baby later. Your dream is to become a mom. My dream is to help you get there. I'm Rebecca Gruenspan, a single mom through domestic adoption and an adoption consultant for over a decade. I'll be your guide, along with other adoption professionals and members of the adoption constellation, walking you step by step down this beautiful and complex path of adopting your baby. When I was going through the adoption process, I had no idea what I was doing, what I needed to know, or more importantly, who to trust. Well, after helping hundreds and hundreds of families grow through the beauty and complexity of adoption, I've learned more than a thing or two, and let me tell you, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. This isn't just another podcast sharing adoption stories, but it's for you if you're genuinely committed to diving in with an open heart, eager to learn everything there is to know about adopting a baby so that you can show up for yourself and your child in the best way possible. This podcast is for you if you're ready to put your newfound knowledge into action. Adoption isn't for the weak of heart, and it certainly isn't done when your baby gets placed in your arms. If that's what you think, I'm afraid you're living in la la land. My promise to you is to keep it real if you promise to keep digging. We'll acknowledge the hard, and we'll also celebrate the joy that is adoption. You ready? Let's do this. Hello, I'm Rebecca Gruenspan. I'm the founder and CEO of RG Adoption Consulting. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Adoption Roadmap Podcast. We come to you live every Wednesday and Friday. Today, I am going to dive deep into what a home study is, what it looks like, how long it's going to take, and some things that I usually share with clients to better prepare yourself for down the road when you're getting ready to bring home your baby, or even when you're getting ready to match with the situation. So today I'm actually going to share with you my screen if you're watching on YouTube, and otherwise just listen in because you're going to learn a lot. So here we go. I believe that when you're starting the adoption process, or anything for that matter, the more you can fully wrap your head around and understand what it's going to look like up front, the easier your journey will be. Meaning, if you can fully understand what each step is going to look like and what will be expected of you to know how to get from where you are today to having your new baby in your arms, the smoother, less stressful, and maybe even quicker the adoption process will be for you. So, what is a home study? A home study is the first step in the process to get to adopt your baby. Home studies are required for every single adoption. It's the process that's going to legally approve you to be able to adopt. The home study is a basic overview of your life, including criminal background checks, your finances, your personal relationships. It's used by the courts to assess if a stable environment exists for a family to receive a placement. In addition to gathering information about the family and evaluating their readiness, the adoption home study is also designed to educate and prepare hopeful adopting parents. So, who provides a home study? You are going to want to find an adoption agency near you for your home study. And sometimes they will do home studies in the whole state. And also sometimes family services agencies will also provide home studies as well. And thirdly, there are some individual independent home study providers. So you want to find either a licensed adoption agency or a social worker who can provide home studies. Again, it has to be in your state that you live in, and sometimes they can do throughout the state, other times just in your specific area. So let's talk a little bit about how to find the right home study agency for you. And I have 4 questions I'm going to go through that you need to ask to vet the right agency. But before we do that, let me just tell you how you can get your hands on our freebie today. Finding a home study agency is really not as important as finding the agency or multiple agencies that you're going to work with for a placement, unless it happens to be the same agency. And there's certain times that makes sense and certain times it doesn't. We're not getting into that today. You want to make sure that they're licensed to do home studies. Most agencies will conduct home studies, although not all. There are also, like I said before, some social service entities, and there are also standalone home study only organizations. If you know someone in your state that has adopted, go ahead and ask them who they used. Usually an agency will work throughout the state. So if you know somebody in your state, no matter if they're close to you or not, it's probably a good place to start. But let me tell you something, and listen up. This is the one and only time you can ask other people who they used and then follow their advice. It's the one and only time during a home study where I advise that you can ask other people who they used and then follow their advice. Because oftentimes, just because somebody used a specific agency to place with, that they matched through, does not mean it's a good fit for you. There's too many other factors. We're not going to talk about this today, but for the home study, go ahead and ask your friends who live in the same state. You just don't want to compare your journey with anybody else's, okay? Another thing you can do if you don't have a friend in your area is you can Google home study agencies in your area or ask in one of many adoption social media groups or online. I would choose 3 places to call and then ask these questions. Where are you located, and can you work with my location? Number 2, what are the total fees? And does that include post-placement visits? Number 3, what is your process and how long does it usually take? Number 4, do you provide education? It goes without saying that not only will comparing the answers you received from your calls help you in choosing the right home study agency, but also your gut. Who did you connect with the most? Sometimes you just have to pay attention to what feels good to you and then just go with it. In fact, I want to tell you a little story. I started my home study with an agency near me when I was living in Chicago. I live in Cleveland, Ohio now, but when I was living in Chicago, I found an agency who I really liked, and they connected me with a social worker who couldn't meet with me for 3 weeks, which felt like forever to me when I just wanted to get started. So I asked if they could change my social worker, and they did. So I want you to go with your gut always and make sure that you advocate for yourself. All right. So again, I just want to go over those 4 questions. Where are you located? Can you work with my location? What are the total fees? Does that include post-placement visits? What's your process and how long does it take? And do you provide education? The last question is because a lot of states require a certain amount of education for you to complete before you can get a home study. Not all of them do, but a lot of them do. So you want to ask, is that something that you provide, or am I going to have to find it on my own? And if a state does not require education, it's still a really good idea. Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about some of my past clients, Shala and Eric, who adopted their baby boy. And when asked about their home study, here's what they had to say. Cheryl explained the whole home study process in a way that we could fully understand and follow, and all anxiety went away with our very first meeting in our home. She provided quick responses and gave us confidence that we did not have to worry about a thing in this part of the adoption process. So you want to find somebody that you really feel good with and you feel like will be responsive to you. Okay, so here's what you can expect in a home study. A home visit, duh. Individual interviews with your social worker if you're married, meaning you and your spouse. If you're single, obviously it'll just be you. And mounds of paperwork. Yes, that is true. You will have more paperwork than you've ever completed in your life throughout this whole journey. So just take it page by page. I love this question. Is the home study a white glove test? Is somebody going to come through the house with a white glove on to check if we have dust everywhere? Well, of course not. But some people also think, well, I have to clean up my house and I have to bake an apple pie. And while part of the home study is coming to your house, I promise you do not need to bake an apple pie to make the house smell good or dust every nook and cranny. I mean, if you need a good excuse to do so, by all means, but nobody is looking that closely. I can promise you that. They just want to see that they would be allowing a child to come into a safe space and that you are who you say you are. Home studies will typically consist of 1 to 2 visits at the agency and then 1 to 2 visits by your social worker in your home. Everybody is different. And since COVID, a lot of processes have changed, but typically that's what you can expect. If you're married, this may include separate interviews with each member of the couple. And if there's another child in the home, there may even be an interview with the child if they are old enough. And trust me, these social workers do this all the time, so they know what they're doing. And you can talk to them about what is it that you might be asking our child. The social worker assigned to you will be your social worker from now until you finalize the adoption, which is approximately 6 months after you bring your baby home. So I really hope that you love your social worker as much as I loved mine. During your in-home visits, they're going to assess your space. They're going to talk to you to make sure you've really thought things through and that adoption is something you really want to do. And if you're married or there's more than one person living at home with you, you're going to be interviewed. It's more of a conversation, really. I keep saying interview, but it's a conversation, but separately. So if you are living with a parent or something, that person is going to need to be interviewed as well. It's really nothing to stress about. You don't have to clean every nook and cranny of your house. They are not going to be making sure your house is impeccably clean. They just want to make sure that it's a safe space to be putting a baby. You will want to have a working fire extinguisher in your house, and you want to make sure you have an escape plan in case of a fire. You need a working smoke detector and carbon dioxide detector, and you also need to show them that you have a back door exit. You do not need to have the house baby proofed during your home study. You only have to have an understanding of how you will baby-proof your house when the time is needed. Let me say that again for those of you in the back. You do not have to have your house baby-proofed during your home visit. They just want to know that you know things like you'll be getting covers for the outlets. You'll be locking the cabinets that house dangerous materials and chemicals, or you'll raise those up high, those types of things. But you do not have to have that done before they come. Before we go on, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. We still have so much to talk about. The Adoption Roadmap podcast is sponsored by the Adoption Roadmap Academy, the only online program of its kind for hopeful adoptive parents like you who want step-by-step guidance, preparing for your home study, creating a compelling adoption profile book, choosing the right agencies, and more so that you can bring your baby home sooner. As an adoption consultant and adoptive mom who's been where you are, I'm going to guide you step by step through everything you need to know about the domestic infant adoption journey from home study to finalization. And the great part is you get to do it at your own pace with a supportive community behind you. The Adoption Roadmap Academy is a step-by-step guide to domestic infant adoption for hopeful individuals and families who are sick and tired of waiting forever. It's the first and only self-paced adoption consultant-led program that shows you exactly how to navigate the domestic adoption process from home study to finalization. With our proven 4-step adoption roadmap model, you're going to be able to save time you can't make up, hours and weeks and even months of tedious legwork and research are done for you. You're going to be able to go at your own pace. No matter what else is going on in life, nobody's going to be breathing down your throat. You are going to be able to gain and keep momentum because everything is going to be spoon-fed for you in exactly the way you need. You are going to possibly even save money by knowing how to vet situations and working with the right agencies. It could save you a lot of heartache. You are going to be able to access this course anytime, anywhere, and get expert guidance and support, not only by me, but also by an amazing community who know exactly what you are walking through. Here's what you can expect inside. You'll be getting streaming videos, worksheets, bonus resources, an adoption profile creation, agency contacts, live streams to connect with other people, and unending education, all using our 4-step proprietary adoption roadmap model. Plus, you'll be receiving a bonus mindset step that I highly recommend for everyone. So if you're interested in starting your adoption journey and ready to fast forward and simplify your domestic adoption process, please email the word academy to support@rgadoptionconsulting.com today, and we'll get you started. Okay, the amount of paperwork you're going to get is no joke. And if you're on YouTube, I am showing this little meme that says, "Screw all this adoption paperwork," with a guy kind of throwing papers in the air and then picking them all up saying, "Just kidding, we want a family and need these forms for our agency." I love it. Our hope is that by prepping you ahead of time, you're going to feel much less overwhelmed and hopefully avoid the feeling the man in this meme is feeling. The home study includes fingerprints, background check for criminal clearance, employment verification, medical clearance. So you will need to take a form into your doctor and get a physical done to make sure that your doctor signs off that you are healthy enough to have a baby. I'm going to go over some of the things that they will ask, but don't worry about taking notes. Financially, you're going to need to have income tax returns, bank statements, investment statements, and pretty much proof of anything you pay for, or at least an itemized budget. And if you end up applying to other agencies in the future, besides your home study agencies, you're going to need this information for every application. Okay? So keep copies of all of this. I know that there are different websites. I use Rocket Money, and I think there's mint.com if that still exists. where you can kind of keep all of your documents and resources and money related accounts from all over the place in one place. And that's super, super helpful. You'll also need a certified birth certificate. So if you can't find it, you're going to want to send away for a copy now because it could take a very long time. And that's the thing that might hold you up. So do that sooner or later. You're going to need verification of health insurance, divorce decrees, marriage certificates, military discharge papers, if applicable, all of that. They're going to ask for a number of personal references and will likely suggest that you get a variety of people for these references. Probably not more than one family member. Sometimes they ask for a neighbor, a coworker, a friend, etc. Ask people you know you can rely on to do this quickly, not just who knows you the best. Again, who can you rely on to get that done quickly? If you know your best friend is going to sit on it for a month, don't ask your best friend. This is not as much about what is said in those references than that you have people that support your decision to adopt. So that's really important. Then they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, kind of like different essay questions. Give thought as to why you want to adopt, who's going to support you, what does your support system look like, especially if you're single. Have you thought about childcare? Is your family supportive of your decision? What was your childhood like? How you think you'll discipline your child? Things like that. That's what they're going to ask you. Now, I'm going to give you a tip here that some agencies and social workers are going to very much disagree with me on, and yet I'm still going to give it to you because I think it's very helpful. When filling out your home study paperwork, my suggestion is to put down that you're open to way more than you even think you are. Literally, you can mark that you're open to everything. I know it might feel scary, but it doesn't hold you to anything. It only approves you for more. Why does this matter? Well, you may find that as you become more educated, that you are actually open to more than you thought you were at the beginning. Or imagine you're at the hospital and the baby is born that you have matched with. The mom gave birth, the baby is born, and that baby has been exposed to something you were not originally open to. But after you've consulted with doctors and experts and you've spent time with the baby, you just know this is your baby and you feel very confident about moving forward. But you were not approved for that substance that your baby was exposed to. Now you have to go back and talk to your home study agency and ask them to put on your home study that you are approved for this. It would create a lot of extra work to be done at the time that you just want to come home with your baby. So it makes your life way easier, even if it means you have to go through extra classes. That's only a good thing. But it makes it way easier when it comes time for the adoption. Make sense? I hope you're with me. Do you have any concerns about not being cleared for your home study? Do you have any deep, dark secrets? Do you see a counselor? Do you take medication? Did you experience abuse growing up? Do you have a DUI or something that's on your record? It's best to bring that up now so we can do some investigating. And when I say we, if you're my client, we can talk through that. But if you're not, talk to whatever home study agencies that you're calling. Bring that up front and ask if it's going to be a problem. Ask if it's going to be a problem. Get those conversations in the forefront so that you can breathe easier. Most likely, it's nothing to worry about. You may have to take some steps. However, you don't want to lie about anything or keep anything because remember, they're running all your background checks. So it's likely something's going to come up if you're trying to hide it. And then you have a much bigger problem. So just be upfront, be honest, and it's usually something you can work through. So many of us see therapists. So many of us take anti-anxiety medication or depression medication. The whole world, I feel like, is on anti-anxiety or depression medication. Usually none of this is a concern as long as your doctor and therapist believe you can safely parent a child. If you grew up in an abusive environment, if you received a DUI, if you have a prior arrest, as long as it wasn't a felony or had to do with child endangerment on your end and happened over 10 years ago, sometimes a little less, usually you're okay. But again, you want to know up front and you don't want to hide anything. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's talk a little bit about education and training. You might be asked to take CPR training. You might be asked to get education on prenatal drug exposure or transracial adoption. You might be asked to sit in on some birth mom and adoptee panels. And I recommend all of the above. Take these classes, do some research methadone, research opioids. Find out what that means to adopt a baby who has been exposed. Find out what it means to adopt a baby whose birth mom has Hep C or bipolar. Do some of this research. Talk to a doctor. It can only help you to be prepared later. You're likely going to need a certain amount of educational hours to complete your home study, depending on the requirements of your state. Even if the state doesn't require classes, do them anyways. Let me repeat that. Even if your state doesn't require classes, adoption takes a lifetime of education. So do them. I like getting the education for the home study done as soon as possible. And there's a lot of places you can earn these hours. Ask your agency. They'll usually give you some advice around that if they don't offer classes themselves. I know that one place you can do classes is adoptionlearningpartners.org. I'll put that in the show notes. And I know that there's a bunch of other places as well. I think Creating a Family is one of them. I will put some of those in the show notes as well. And if you don't have to take specific courses, and the ones that I mentioned are ones I think everybody should take, but pick topics that are of interest to you. And I really do encourage you to attend any in-person classes that you can. It's really going to help a lot. You're going to need to get a certificate to prove your hours for education credits. If you're a client of RG Adoption Consulting, that is something that we provide because we do a ton of education. In fact, I think it's one of the number one things needed as you're going through the adoption journey. Also, perhaps you might want to buy a book to give your family members. Family members are really interested in what you're going through and they want to support you and they want to understand it. And you're not going to want them to be asking you 1,000,001 questions. And they're going to want to. So one book that I recommend, shameless plug, is called The Adoption Roadmap, the 4-step process to adopting your baby in less than a year, by none other than me, Rebecca Gruenspan. You can find that book on Amazon for less than $15. It's a great resource for your family. The home study process can take 2 to 3 months on average. It can take you up to a month to get your fingerprints to clear. It can take a while to obtain your birth certificate if you don't have that. It can take a while to schedule all your visits and your appointments. So just know that it's going to take time. Once you turn all your paperwork in, it usually takes 2 to 3 months after that. And I want to mention that your home study is good for 1 year in most states. Some states, it's good for 2 years. However, if you are going to take a multi-agency approach, I recommend that you consistently have your home study up to date for every year. So if you're still not matched at the 10-month mark, you're going to want to reach out to your agency and start getting that updated. It will cost you money. So it has to be current based on the laws of the state where you are adopting from. So if your home study is good for 2 years in Illinois and you're adopting in Florida, where home studies are only good for a year, your home study has to be up to date within the year. Also, if you move, you're going to need to get an addendum for your home study. That also costs money. If you move to another state, you may need to start over. So I just want to put that all out there. All in all, a home study is needed to legally approve you to adopt a baby in the United States. I want you to embrace this process. It's a good thing. It helps you to think through different scenarios that you may not have thought about. And we need to be glad that the states are making sure that they're placing children with good families. Also, enjoy the knowledge and support that you're going to receive from your home study social workers. They'll be working with you intimately for a long time. Again, I loved mine, and I hope that you love yours too. The adoption process is going to bring up a lot for you. And trust me, if it doesn't now, it will. I know it will. So it's a good idea. Listen up. It's a really good idea to develop a relationship with an adoption coach or therapist now. And we will be talking on this podcast to an adoption therapist as well, numerous times through this podcast. So keep tuning in and continue to learn as much as you can about the adoption process so that you can prepare to be the best parent you can for your child. I appreciate you tuning in today. We're going to dig in more about the home study process and hear from a birth mom and adoption home study professional, as we will hear from multiple sides of the triad throughout all the steps of the adoption roadmap that we will be covering throughout the Adoption Roadmap podcast. So please, if this was helpful, click that link below. You know which one I'm talking about. Hit subscribe. Get that bell on to let you know when the next episode is coming out, because we come out with episodes twice a week. And if you liked what you heard, please share it and write a review. I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, bye-bye.